Hello, it is Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. It's around 10:10 p.m. Mountain Time. Thanks for accessing this episode of this show. It's a sad one because I have to talk about the death of someone I got to know quite well from living in Guelph. Richard Laviolette. I'm going to read something that my friend and Richard's friend, Greg Denton, linked to on a post about Richard's passing. It's from the Wall Custance Funeral Home and Chapel. It's an announcement. I'm not going to read the entire thing. It's really lovely and long, and I'll link to it in the show notes, but just some context for where I'm going to go as I talk here. It is with unspeakable sadness that we share the news of Richard Laviolette's passing. Following the onset of Huntington's disease symptoms this past fall and their rapid worsening since May, Richard chose to receive MAID, or medical assistance in dying, and he died peacefully on September 5th, 2023. Richard is survived by his partner Sophia, his father Daryl, his sister Christine, his brother Matthew, his siblings Oliver, Sullivan, Benjamin, and Leaf, and a large and loving family of aunts and uncles and cousins, along with many, many dear friends and musical collaborators. Richard was born in Port Colborne, Ontario in 1982 and grew up in Tara, outside of Owen Sound, first living in a yellow brick house with bats in the attic, but before moving to a nearby hobby farm in high school. His family life was filled with music, with his parents singing and playing music together at home, his mother teaching line dancing, and his father performing locally with a country cover band. On family visits to Port Colborne, they would join in the large and raucous Robinson family jams held in his grandmother's living room. This beautifully written piece goes on to talk about the various health struggles that Ricky endured and I think contributed to his decision. They all did. He had ulcerative colitis and almost died when he was 17. Some of the medications needed for the colectomy that he had, the surgery, caused intense bone deterioration, making hip replacement surgery a necessity 11 years later at age 28. As he navigated many other surgeries and health issues throughout his life, playing and listening to music was always an anchor for Richard, a rock. Okay, so that, like I say, I don't want to read this whole thing. I just wanted to give you a sense of who Richard was in terms of some of the struggles he had in terms of his health. I'm going to... Today, what you're going to hear are a couple of interviews that I conducted with Richard, with my wife, Michelle, my now wife, Michelle. We had a show called the Mishvish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. And we did that show for 6 years. And Ricky was unusual. He would come to the show in person, live in the morning. And some people did this from time to time, but it was unusual. A lot of the interviews we featured on the show were me doing them in advance, pre-recorded, or that was pretty much it. Or the odd one was live, but very few people would come and perform live at 7 or 8 in the morning, as Richard did on the first occasion, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I do have a pretty lengthy history as a fan, and as someone who covered Richard and got to interview him. He didn't really do a lot of press somehow, and I got to talk to him a few times, and I was happy to do it. I think he's one of those, I don't know, maybe people didn't recognize how powerful he really was as a songwriter and a singer and a performer. And he toured extensively, so I think everyone who saw him knew. I guess I'm alluding to the really dumb press. But anyway, let me talk a little bit about how I encountered Richard and my connections to him for you before we get to those interviews. I think I first came upon Richard in the early 2000s, I want to say, maybe 2004 or 5. I understand he moved to town to go to the University of Guelph. I had graduated from that school by then and was playing in bands or helping organize shows, working for the community radio station. So pretty immersed in things that were going on, as was Richard. And I would put on shows, and Ricky would play these shows. And he made a record in 2006, I believe his first album, called A Little Less Like a Rock, A Little More Like Home. And that came out on a Guelph label called Burnt Oak. And what I've found in my preparation for this, and I guess I didn't really explain a thing that I should explain, which is that I knew this day was coming. I knew that Richard had made this decision when my friend Steve Lamke told me about it at the Hillside Festival in Guelph this past July. So I knew this day was coming, and I've exchanged texts with Richard. They're pretty brief and lots of emojis and things like that. So I was trying to stay connected with him every day. But anyway, I knew this was coming, but I also didn't know what I was going to do on the show until the last few days. And I started digging into, like, how am I going to pay tribute to this guy on this show? Anyway, I found some interviews. I'll get to that. Where was I going? I have found the 2006 review I wrote of Richard's debut album for Exclaim magazine, which for those around the world, Exclaim is still Canada's national music and culture magazine, and I've been contributing to it since around 2004. I still am one of the last of the, I don't know, I've been there a long time. I still do the odd thing for them. So I'm going to read this to you with no pride about the writing or anything like that. It's just it's one of the first things I did to try to help spread the word about Richard, and so I'll share it with you. This, again, from October 1st, 2006, apparently, was when it was published. Guelph, Ontario resident Richard Laviolette is a gem of a contemporary folk songwriter with a compelling voice, and he's composed a remarkable full-length here. Laviolette is one of these old souls trapped in a young body, and he draws upon traditions in rock and folk music to create something fresh and imaginative. All on his own, he brings a host of instrumentation to his versatile voice, which can swing from a delicate whisper to a guttural bark in the same breath. Pumpkinheads is a lovely, meandering song, and Ordinary Fellow reveals Laviolette's gifts as a storyteller and tunesmith. The vivid depictions of You're Dead and barroom blues of finding comfort in eulogies are stirring, and it's difficult to deny the power of Thesaurus or the whimsical protest song Anti-Anything. The local hit Q, which is typographically, it's an uppercase Q and a lowercase q right beside each other. Q, the local hit Q, reveals Laviolette's warmth and humor, which also comes through in romantic songs like Oncoming Trains. Full of confidence and promise on this record, Richard Laviolette is a shining light in the home rock movement that music lovers should seek out. So that is something I wrote to try to get the word out about Richard. To my understanding, Richard didn't do a ton of interviews, or perhaps even garner as much press as he maybe deserved. Actually, Michelle, so yeah, what I've discovered in my sort of reflecting upon him and the way our paths crossed is I used to put on shows quite a bit in Guelph, both for my job at CFRU when I worked there, and I think even after that when I would try to put on events in the community. Richard I would often ask him to play, and he would more often than not say, sure, yes, I will be there for you. And he was. And my wife, Michelle, and I would, back certainly before we had children, we could both be at the shows together or be at events together. And then after we had children, we would swap who got to go to what. But when I was putting on events, Michelle would be there and help me. And we would try to make the visiting artists and the musicians that we booked feel as welcome as possible. And over at the E-Bar, where we did a lot of our shows, we made sure they had food to eat, and Michelle would help by doing their merch for them as they played. So we would have a merch table. And Michelle was just recounting the fact that not every musician, locally or otherwise, would actually take the time to speak to her. They would only speak to her if I was around. This was common among particularly men. They wouldn't talk to my girlfriend or my wife and engage with her. And she pointed out that Richard always did. She noted it, that Richard always came back and would sit and help her do the merch, and sit and ask her how she was doing and engage with her. I think Richard was such a kind and considerate and sensitive guy, and I think he also respected the work that went into doing that kind of stuff in your community. So I just want to say that he's a lovely guy, and so Michelle and I also, before we were married and after we were married for a little bit, we did a radio show called the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show, as I mentioned. We started that in 2005, and we got married in 2007. And then the week that our son was going to be born, we decided, that was our 300th episode on the Wednesday, July 27th. We decided that was going to be us going on indefinite hiatus. And then our son was born 2 days later. And so we really liked doing that show, and we liked doing community radio. And Richard really appreciated community radio. I think if you do a search for all the interviews he did, I would not be surprised if most of them were on CFRU, and most of them were for community or local media or student media. And he also would try to sit in with people and help them do their shows or whatever he could. And I will always respect him for that. It's, in sort of digging through what I had of us interacting, I think he just had a real love of the medium. In fact, I was just looking this up. Sometime after I left Guelph, I don't know if I have it. Hang on, maybe I'll find it here. I might still have it up here. Let me see if I can find it. But Richard, sometime after I left Guelph, let's just go with that, in 2020 or 2021, I still had an on-air column on the CBC show, CBC radio show, nationally broadcast show. The Next Chapter with Sheila Rogers. And part of my gig was to talk about two books at once, compare them and contrast them. And I got a note from Ricky saying he heard me talking about a book about A Tribe Called Quest and a book about Gordon Lightfoot, and he found it really fascinating. And I was touched to get that note, but I was also, it occurred to me even at the time, like, oh, he's just listening to the radio. Like, Richard just listens to the radio all the time. I feel like that's how I knew him from 15, 20, almost 20 years ago, and that's what he's still like. He just appreciates the medium. So, yeah, the last time I interviewed Richard was actually for this podcast in 2017, but we, as I recall, we did it as a live radio interview, and then I grabbed the file and turned it into a podcast as well. And I also turned it into an article in the Guelph Mercury Tribune, where I had a local column, the local paper, and I'll link to all of these things if you're interested in the show notes. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. There's not a ton of press that Ricky did, I don't think. And sorry, not other than that I'm aware of. I mean, I was just talking to Steve Lamke about this before I started recording, and Steve worked with him at You've Changed Records, and he said, yeah, he didn't get to do a lot of it, and he didn't do a lot of it talking to people. So I feel really grateful that he made a point, Ricky did, of talking to me when he could, and I'm glad I was able to write some things about him for some different media platforms. I'm sure I talked about him and wrote about him for CBC as often as I could, and made sure his songs were played and all that kind of thing. And I just loved him. I loved his music so much, and I got to be a part of it, and I'll get to that right now, actually. My old bandmate, Nathan Coles, we used to have a band called Nathan Coles Outfit, and we toured fairly extensively, mostly in Ontario and the east coast of Canada, and made a record with Don Kerr and had all sorts of fun adventures. And the band broke up, I think, in 2007. And one day in 2016, Nathan asked me if I could join him on drums for a show that he was playing. He was going to be opening for Richard Laviolette and the Country Parade at the Heartwood Concert Hall in Owen Sound, Ontario. And the date of the show, I just looked this up, October 7th, 2016. Now, Richard really loved Nate's music, and he, I think, also really enjoyed our band, Nathan Coles Outfit, which, again, broke up in 2007. But Richard would often be at our shows, and in fact, I remember we did some sort of weird improvised, our band did some sort of improvised jam thing at the Albion Hotel, and Richard was part of it. I have a memory of this. I don't know what the context was, but I feel like all 4 members of my band were on stage, and maybe other people were, and Richard was there. So I think Richard had looked up to Nate a little bit and admired Nate, as everyone who gets to know Nate Coles. You can't help but look up to him a little bit. He's a charismatic and interesting and wonderful guy, and it was really one of the highlights of my life to get to play in that band with him. And so we did that show. Nate and I did that duo show on October 7th, 2016 in Owen Sound, opening for Richard. And I do have a sense memory of Richard saying, "Man, that was great. It was so great to see you play again." And to me, and I will tell you that I had a good memory of that. I think I played okay that night. It wasn't my kit, it was a little makeshift, and I was trying to get used to it. But I did feel like Nate and I played well, and I felt good. And I noticed that Richard noticed it. And a couple of years later, after that show, I think he said that night, we should play together. We should play together sometime. And people say things like that, and you don't think too much on it. And then went on with my life, and Richard did. And then 2 years later, in 2018, he invited me to play with him and some other people towards a record he was planning to make. So it was Richard, Jesse Bell Smith, Matthew Reeves, Andy McGoffin, and myself. We all gathered at Andy McGoffin's recording studio in Cambridge, Ontario. It's called the House of Miracles. And on October 24th, 25th, 27th, and 28th in 2018, we got together to play. And the way that started, though, I should say, is that Richard had sent all of us some home demo recordings he had done. And I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like it was just him and an acoustic guitar, and I feel like he was just singing into a computer's microphone. He was just playing, and he had his songs mostly figured out, and he was just playing. And what had happened was he sent it to all of us, I'm pretty sure, and I happened to have rented an electronic drum kit, and I had it hooked up to my computer, and I decided I would just muck around on the demos, and I just played the songs a few times through until I thought I had something, and then I just pressed record, and then I played all of them straight through with what I thought were possibilities, and I sent it to Richard, and I think I sent it to everyone to say, "Hey everyone, I just thought I'd take a shot at this. I'm not married to any of it. I don't know if this works. I'm just going to do my best. I did my best, rather, but here's something we can, just if we need a starting point when we get together." And then we got together, and Richard said he liked what I'd come up with, and so structurally, if you will, we played these 9 or so songs together. And on the last day, on October 28th, Andy set up a room mic just to capture what we'd been working on. So no tracking or anything. The plan was we would get together for those 4 days, and then in the coming weeks or the next week or something, we were going to actually get together and make a record. And Richard sent us notes after he got Andy's room mic recording, and he'd already figured out a sequence for the album. It was very methodical in its own way. I noticed that some of the song titles had changed from when he sent us them a couple weeks earlier. That the names of the songs were already a bit different here and there, and but he had themes for the sides of each record, and it was really cool. Like, he really had a plan. So yeah, Andy recorded the thing, like I said, and then we planned to make a record. But then that never happened. As far as I know, Richard decided to leave Guelph shortly thereafter for New Brunswick. We were actually going to play a show that December based on that jamming we did in October, and we didn't. He had agreed to do the show, but something locally happened, and it spooked him, and he didn't feel up to playing, so we didn't play. And then we never got back together to make the recording. Now, for what I understand, some of those songs are going to be on a new record with new people, and presumably quite different arrangements. I'm just going to head back to this funeral announcement, so I have the title of the album correct here. Sorry. Richard and his band began recording with Scott Merritt at the Cottage in Guelph in February 2023, and his forthcoming album, All While Things Are Shy, will be released by You've Changed Records. Songs on the album wrestle with death, love, loss, winter, spring, hope, fear, and anger. Also paying tribute to Richard's cat, Sweep O Depot. They were recorded through the increasing physical, mental, and emotional difficulty Richard was experiencing as Huntington's disease symptoms worsened much faster than anyone had expected. The symptoms affected his ability to sing and play the guitar, and they made the decision-making about song arrangements much more labored and difficult. So Richard suffered, it sounds like, and I'm very sad not to be home for various reasons, but in Guelph, and it's hard when we keep losing. I feel like every few weeks we keep losing these people, and I'm not around my friends to mourn with them. But I'm happy these songs, some of the songs, I don't think all of them. I've got a sense of what the songs are going to be on this new record, and from what I can tell, based on song titles, again, Richard might have changed the song titles, and they might be some of the same songs, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the songs, of the 9 songs that we worked on, seem to be on the new version of the record rather. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. Yeah, I really all I have then from that time we shared making music together in the House of Miracles was this demo recording, and it's not the clearest fidelity, but it just meant so much that Richard asked me to take part in such a thing at all, and I had a lot of fun playing with those folks, some of whom I knew well and some of whom I didn't. Andy and I had a long working relationship, made a record together. Did we make more than one? I can't remember. Known him a long time. Jesse Bell and I played in bands together. Didn't know Matt very well, but got to know him, and Richard obviously I knew. So I ran into him at Sappy Fest, Ricky, in 2019. My family and I went down there. That's the last time we've been down to Sackville. And as I say, Ricky had moved there, I believe, if I have the chronology correct. And I just ran into him and said hello. And then I had lost sort of track of him, as I had a lot of people during the pandemic. And in a sense, you check in here and there. This past July and August 2023, my family and I made our first trip back to Ontario together. And our first real outing in Ontario was at the Hillside Festival in Guelph. And it was there that my friend and Richard's, Stephen Lamke, who I mentioned earlier, broke the news that Richard didn't have much longer to live, that he'd was going to undergo this MAID process, and I was quite sad and shocked to hear this, and kind of winded, as I recall. I just like processing as people were playing music, and I think Nico Paolo was playing when I heard this, so I'm And yeah, but within a few moments, my son was being brought up on stage to be sung happy birthday to. It was a very surreal and emotional few moments, if I have this correct. And anyway, the next day of the Hillside Festival, or later that day, I don't remember, I was startled to see Ricky. All of a sudden, he was there, and we spoke really briefly and grabbed a photo, and he was gone. And it's the last time I saw him again, I guess, on the grounds the next day, but we didn't talk, and that's it. He and I have been texting over the past couple of weeks. As I said, it's mostly pretty spare stuff, heart emojis, telling each other we love each other, and yeah. And now he's gone today. There were at least 2 celebrations for Richard in Guelph that I'm aware of, and I'm very happy for him and everyone there who could express love for one another. You don't always get the chance to say things like that to people when they're leaving or you're leaving. You know, it's the word that has come up a few times in conversation with folks is that this is a very surreal thing to, it's almost unprecedented. I think some of us unfortunately have had to grapple with people who have terminal illnesses and diagnoses, but you don't often know an end date for someone's life. And so, leave it to Ricky to go out like almost nobody else would. Anyway, that's a little ramble about how I've got to know Richard and what he means to me. I love him so much. This is very difficult. And, when people go, people have all sorts of artifacts to process and reflect upon. In my case, it's interviews, I guess. It's recordings of their voices and conversation. And when I've had to make episodes like this one, I've heard back that people appreciate them. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to share 2 interviews that my now wife, Michelle, and I conducted with Richard, as I said, on our old Mish Fish interracial morning show on CFRU in Guelph. These are, as I said, these are pretty unique for us. We rarely had people who join us in studio between 7 and 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. Most interviews were conducted remotely and usually just by me alone, not with Michelle. Again, Richard was different. He came in live for both of them, and at one of them he actually performed some songs live. So yes, the first one took place by my records on Wednesday, December 13th, 2006, and Richard chatted with us and played a couple songs live, or, well, he tried to do that. Someone may have interrupted him at one point. You'll hear this for yourself. Let's hear this blast from the past from 2006 with Ricky right now. Here you go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Mish Fish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. We hope you enjoyed your BBC Bulletin. My name is Vish. And
my name's Michelle.
Michelle just swore on the air. I don't know if you caught that. She cussed, and we apologize. It's that kind of morning. It's that kind of morning, and we were very sorry about that. Hopefully no children were in the vicinity, and you can explain to them everything was okay.
It's just words, children.
It's just words. Everything's okay. Right. So it's time. It's time for our weekly artist profile, and we're very excited. Our guest this morning is a powerful live performer and one of Guelph's most captivating, I would say, alt folk. I don't know what to call him. He's an enigma. He's a strange man. I don't know what to call him there. Anyway, one of Guelph's most captivating singers and songwriters. Over the past year, has become increasingly involved with the Burnt Oak Records collective. This is a music collective who recently released his latest record, A Little Less Like a Rock, A Little More Like a Home, which has received rave reviews from listeners all over the place. And critics, and a couple of critics. I think a couple of critics have even said nice things, so that's good. This Thursday, December 14th, our guest will perform at Stay Out of the Mall 5 in Guelph, among other places. And we're thrilled to have him join us for a chat and play a few songs live in the studio. So, ladies and gentlemen, please say good morning to Richard Laviolette. Good morning, Richard.
Oh, good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm not doing too bad this morning.
It's a little early, I imagine, for you there. It's a little early for me, but we want to thank you for making the effort to come on our show.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I thank Jordan Howard for reminding me last night.
You'd forgotten about your appearance. Is that fair?
That's very fair. It's a very fair comment to make.
That's all right. It's a busy time of year when you think about it. Now, Richard, I want us to first of all, can you hear me? Okay? Do you want your headphones on? And it's fine.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There you go. Yeah,
I didn't even have my headphones.
No,
on.
you didn't. You didn't know how, and you were talking kind of quietly. So
okay,
everything's fine. There you go. I can hear you. Hi.
Test one.
There you go. Richard, can you tell us a bit about your recent? Or no, that's not what I wanted to ask you at all. I wanted to. I went to the wrong question there. I wanted you to tell us about yourself, actually, and where you're from. I don't know very much about you, Richard. What brought you to Guelph?
Oh, well, I guess I originally came to Guelph for university studies, but I grew up north of here, about a 2-hour drive north of here, in a little farm town called Tara.
Oh, okay.
With about 800 other people. We all grew up together in a little town, and we ran around and fished in rivers and planted potatoes.
Oh, wow.
That's about all they do up in Tara, is plant potatoes and go fishing after dinner.
Farming.
All right, so and you were drawn to
nice.
Guelph for the university community?
Yeah, and wasn't really looking to go anywhere specific, but just looking more to get out of Tara. And Guelph was actually the only school that accepted my 67 average, I think, that I had coming out of high school.
Well, it's high standards here at the University of Guelph. Well, what program are you in, or are you in? Are you still in school?
No, I'm not still in school. I was in history.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Which is it was a pretty solid program here for as far as history studies and profs are concerned.
Right.
But I guess I was just too into the rock and the roll, and so I got a little sidetracked, I guess.
So, what kind of music would you listen to there in Tara when you were growing up there?
Well, I mean, it was you had pretty limited access to media and music, and so I mean, high school I was listening to everything from Neil Young and Radiohead and Nirvana to Rage Against the Machine and Tool. I had a little later high school. Some people introduced me to some Velvet Underground, some Hayden, and some Elliott Smith. So that was kind of the most radical music I was listening to at the time.
Right. Well, you know what? I know this sounds silly, but I can hear almost everything you described in your music. It feels like you absorbed it all like a sponge, and now it's coming out.
Especially the rage.
Of course. The Rage Against the Machine. You're pretty much like Zach De La Rocha, marching about the stage and yelling at people. No, it's good. So what got you playing music around these parts exactly?
Well, I think for myself, it actually, I've been hanging out with the Burnt Oak crowd a lot lately, but I think first year I started venturing down to the Jimmy Jazz, and ran into Nathan Coles there before even the outfit was around, and that was actually pretty inspiring for myself. Was listening to Nate play his half-hour set before the open mic every Sunday night there, and then so I actually played in a cover band for about a year or so
while you were in Guelph.
Yeah, the Crappy Roommate.
Okay.
And we'd cover everything from everything I listened to in high school. Really,
right.
We already covered that. And then I soon realized that wasn't my true path. That wasn't my calling. And so I quit the friggin' band. I left them. I left them in my dust.
That's right.
And we're still pals. We still talk. But
you're still pals with the Crappy Roommate.
With the Crappy Roommate. And
there's the plural. I thought it was.
Well, no, it is the Crappy Roommate, but I mean there was more than
right.
There was more than two of us in the band.
There's always more than one Crappy Roommate. It's true. Yeah.
And then it was about that time that I recorded Mary Carl.
Right. You had another band. Is that right?
Yeah. It was it was more like a solo album, and then we kind of got the band together for the CD release party, and then the band kind of fell apart. and then was inspired to record the album that came out in August.
Right, which is a great record as well. You're putting out great records there, Richard. Are you aware of this? Do you feel this? Do people tell you that?
Well, I mean, I think in your kind of hometown, which I think Guelph is definitely has become. It's hard to gauge. I mean, from people's responses, how well your album is actually doing, or how well it's actually being received. Because I think in your hometown you get more positive than negative. Kind of like, I mean, people are really encouraging in Guelph, so I think despite what you're putting on an album, I think lots of people are just incredibly supportive, and. Yeah, which is really incredible. But sometimes it's hard to get like a true
and even-handed kind of
But I mean I'm having a good time with what I'm throwing down. So
nice.
Now on your recent record, which I believe I titled correctly, a little less like a rock, a little more like a home. Is that correct?
A little more like home.
A little more like home, not a home.
Or just
home. A little more like home.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I knew I got
abstract,
it wrong. It's a long title, and I sometimes you get these things wrong, and I knew I said something wrong there, so I'm glad I got you to correct me.
Oh.
So a little less like a rock, a little more like home. Did I get it right that time?
I was just thinking about I was about to sneeze, and then I was gonna like excuse myself while I sneezed, but it went away.
But my rambling warded off the sneeze. Yeah. Now, you play lots of instruments on this record. What can you tell us about making this album?
Yeah, I was spent a lot of time with Steve Hamilton on the CD. Well, all of my time, I guess. And so for the most part, it was kind of me tinkering around in the studio, which was a different experience because before I was kind of on a computer and had all the time in the world, and so for this time it was a lot of kind of pre-planning involved, and ended up, I think I recorded like 18 songs and then used 12 from that. And so it's funny because on the inside of the insert it has like I think 3 instruments or something that says that I play on the album that are on those other songs that got booted.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Because it was kind of getting down to the deadline, and I wanted to tour in August, and we weren't sure what songs were going to be on it yet. So like
it says here, you played guitar, voice, keys, bass, piano, banjo, accordion, mandolin, and drums.
Yeah. So I don't think I played banjo. I don't think I played accordion. Although there is an accordion on Fussin' and Fighting, but that was my Aunt Kathy. And I don't think I played mandolin.
So this is a scam.
It's definitely it's just it's a bit of a.
That's some trivia for people.
That's still a lot of instruments, though.
No, it's still a lot. It's a very lush record in a lot of ways. So. All right, listen, Richard, we're going to go to a song from that record now, if you don't mind.
I don't.
And now I selected one. Normally we ask our guests, do you have another pick? I can still change it. Do you want to pick something else?
That's no.
This song's fine?
Let it rip.
All right. And then when we come back, you're going to play some songs for us live. Is that right?
Yes, please.
We're very excited about this. It's very early in the morning.
It's great. We never get live people.
Well,
sometimes we do.
We always
We're not musicians, though.
Yeah, we never. Well, yeah, they're
playing
mostly
live.
Yeah, playing live in the studio is a rare thing. Yeah.
It's only happened once before, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So we appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
And this song is called Thesaurus. It's by Richard Laviolette, and it's on a record called. Now I'm going to get this right.
Yeah.
A Little Less Like a Rock, A Little More Like Home, which is out on the Burnt Oak Records label. You're listening to the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. Richard Laviolette with the song Thesaurus from A Little Less Like a Rock, A Little More Like Home on the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. Listen, if you want to get a hold of us on the show, I should let you know that you can by calling us at 519-837-2378. That's 519-837-CFRU. You can also email us at mishvish@hotmail.com, michvish@hotmail.com. If you have any questions or comments for our guest today, you can call in and we'll try to address them for you. That's the idea. But now is a very special time on the show because I'm going to stop talking. And our guest, Richard Laviolette, is going to play a couple of songs for us right now. Are you ready? Are you ready there, Richard?
I'm fist pumpingly ready.
Oh my goodness, this is going to be like Rage Against the Machine. I know it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show. And Richard, please tell us what you're going to play and all those things. We're really anxious to hear about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Laviolette.
All right, so this is a song called "Stop Dancing," and if you'd like to hear another full band version of this song, stop by the Albion Friday evening, and I'll be rocking out with the Black Lungs. Actually, his Black Lungs.
Richard Laviolette, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Laviolette. Good job, Richard. That was very well done. That was a song called "Stop Dancing." Is that right?
That was actually the first half of a song called "Stop Dancing," and but no, that's good though. I mean, the second half I can bust into in a second here.
Oh, I interrupted you.
No.
We interrupted the performer. I thought you were looking at me like you were done.
Oh no, and I was going to try say something about how the song wasn't done yet, but I should have explained that before the song even started. But
sometimes these shows, they don't go so well.
will we have a second?
Absolutely.
A minute? Okay.
Here's some more of "Stop Dancing" on the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show.
Oh no, okay.
Here we go.
Back in the zone.
Just because you got bank don't make it right for you to blow it on shit you don't need. Oh, there's too many well-deserved people in poor circumstance with nothing to fucking need. With your new tub, your new floor rug, new kitchen and bath, it's a hobby that involves these things and not so much the people. Just like human cells, rich homes renew themselves every 7 years. Just because you got bank don't make it right for you to blow it on shit you don't need. There's too many well-deserved people in poor circumstance with nothing to fucking need. With your new tub, new floor rug, new kitchen and bath, it's a hobby that involves these things and not so much the people. Just like human cells, rich homes renew themselves every 7 years. Lord, That's the official ending of the song.
Yeehaw. I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want to get in your way again. That was embarrassing. Sorry about that, Richard.
No, it was definitely a bit of a miscommunication.
No, I just, I haven't seen you in a while, so I guess I didn't know that song, and then I just jumped in there because you were just looking at me like it was done.
Well, then, because I had it in my head that, you mentioned you were going to ask me a question. I'm still like, well, maybe I'll just play the second half after. But then I had to explain to you what was going on, and you felt bad that. Yeah.
It's all good.
It's another magical radio moment on the Mishish Interracial Morning Show. That was fantastic, Richard. Thanks for playing that song.
You're welcome.
This brings to mind the question that people often ask me about you, and because I know nothing, I don't know how to answer. But you're a very passionate performer. This is a trademark thing of yours. I think in some ways, a lot of stuff comes out of you. Can you talk about what it's like? What is it about playing live that brings so much power out of you? You got a very powerful voice.
Well, I think people in general are fueled by emotion and fueled by their experiences, and good and bad, and I guess it's more just that in combination with just screaming it kind of sometimes goes well together.
The thing, one of our listeners there, Greg Denton. You know Greg Denton?
Oh yes.
He has a very he's very fond of. You know Greg.
Yeah.
He's quite fond of talking about seeing you play solo after he's seen you on a couple of bills where there's 3 or 4 other bands and they're crazy loud punk rock kind of borderline metal bands. He says, and then you come on and blow them away. This is. And I don't want to put you on the spot here. This is Greg saying this. He said, you come on by yourself and have more intensity and more impact than all these crazy punk rock kids. So it's just kind of, this is why it came to mind. I was watching you sing there, and you just, it's a compelling thing there. You got a lot of soul in you, a lot of power, and it's something to see. I just want to compliment you, and eventually I'll stop talking.
Well, if you keep talking, then I don't have to.
No, it's fantastic, and we want to thank you again for joining us on the show. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Now we want to hear one more song.
Yeah, sure.
Are you up for that?
Yes.
Now I'm not going to say anything until there's absolute silence.
Okay.
We're not going to interrupt you, and you do your thing. All right? You got to tune in.
Oh yeah, I'm just making sure that the tuning is correct.
Sure. In the meantime, I'll tell people again about where you're playing in the next couple of days here. Let's see here. Of course, tomorrow night, Richard is part of Stay Out of the Mall 5, along with the Great Lakes Swimmers, Laura Barrett, Habitat, Evan Gordon and the Sad Elves, and Burroughs. Oh, not to be missed there, DJ Charles will be spinning music throughout the evening. Again, that's at the E-Bar, 41 Quebec Street in Guelph. The doors are at 8 p.m. sharp. Richard, you'll be on around 8:30, I believe. So people got to get there early to catch you, yeah. $6 with a non-perishable food item, $8 without, and all proceeds go to the Canadian Cancer Society towards leukemia research. And for more information about Richard, I would think the best place right now is burntoak.ca. Is that fair, Richard?
Oh, yeah.
That's your label.
That sounds like a good place to go.
Okay,
good place to start. Yeah,
burntoak.ca, and then you can do a little Google and find Richard's other. He's got lots of websites there in some ways, so you can check him out there. And also this Friday, December 15th, Richard Laviolette and his Black Lungs will be performing with Slowhand Motem. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You definitely just pronounced that correctly.
Slowhand Motem, Weird Apples, Griffin and the True Believers, and the Faceless Lasers will be joining Richard Laviolette and his Black Lungs at the Albion Hotel, 49 Norfolk Street in Guelph. It's a 9:30 p.m. start, $5 to pay what you can, and it's a 19-plus show. And again, for more information about all that, burntoak.ca. Now, Richard, are you ready to go? Are you ready to play us another song?
Yeah, no, I'm all tuned up here.
All right.
All tuned up.
All right, hit it.
There's a noose around my neck, tied like a figure eight, with the other end tied to the garbage I have made. Now I run around in circles with the hopes of getting free, but that rope keeps getting tighter and I end up in a heap. It's a heap of dead weight. It's the world on a string. It's when all the dead and dying come together and we sing hallelujah, hallelujah. thoughts of how we're feeling now. Then what on earth are we to do? What is there to live for?
That's the ending.
Richard Laviolette, ladies and gentlemen. Richard, what was that song called?
That was song would be called Figure Eight, I guess.
Figure Eight. Are you just making that up? Do you have a name for it?
No, not yet.
It's a new song then.
Yes.
All right, Figure Eight.
Great.
Unbelievable, Richard. I got to tell you, I've been on vacation for a few days. Oh. This has been the highlight of my vacation.
Hey.
Seeing you in the studio and hearing you play.
Get out of here.
No, absolutely. I have had some good sandwiches. I've done some nice things, but this absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. You're very flattering, Bish.
Well, no, I try to be honest, is what I am. I'm honest.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Now, Richard, again, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I know you did, because if you didn't, I'm going to have a word with you later. But Richard and his band, the Black Lungs. Who's in the Black Lungs?
Kevin Barnhorst, Dave Crosby, and Jonathan Cass.
Oh, wow. Johnny Cash is in your band.
Cass.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought maybe something was going on there. That's interesting. Okay, so Richard Laviolette and his Black Lungs this Friday night at the Albion. And, of course, tomorrow night, Richard will be performing solo at 8:30 sharp, 8:30 p.m. at the E-Bar as part of Stay Out of the Mall 5. So thank you, Richard, again. And speaking of Stay Out of the Mall 5, we're going to go to some music now by another artist performing there at the festival. This band will be headlining the whole show. They're called the Great Lake Swimmers. They're from Toronto. And we're going to hear a song of theirs from a record of the same name, this compilation called See You on the Moon, Songs for Kids of All Ages. This is the Great Lake Swimmers with See You on the Moon. See You on the Moon. I can't talk. On the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph.
Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. I guess those were a few ads. Before that, we played Laura Barrett from Earth Sciences, Deception Island Optimists Club.
Right, and before that, we heard from Burroughs from their, it's kind of a demo. You can get more information on their MySpace page, which is in front of me right now, myspace.com/Burroughs Music. That's BURROWS Music. And you can hear these songs at your leisure, if you have a computer, that is. Right, the song we heard was called Trees in Forest. And as I say, it's sort of a demo. It might be on their next, their first record. We'll see. We'll see what happens to Burroughs.
Burroughs.
What will become of Burroughs? I wonder sometimes.
Where will Burroughs go?
Yes.
Before that, Habitat, a live recording from the CFRU Local Music Lunch Hour concert, which took place on November 22nd, so just this past month. And that song was called Max Flex.
That's right. And it's kind of an exclusive. I think we played it last week as well.
I think we did, yeah.
That was our debut. But it's we're trying to make a hit single out of that thing. So we're going to play it every week until it becomes yeah, we talked about it last week. Yeah.
It's in your head.
Yeah.
You know it.
And we started the set off with the Great Lake Swimmers from the See You on the Moon compilation. That song was called See You on the Moon. Coincidence, I guess.
Yes, and I guess that whole set was Stay Out of the Mall set.
Stay Out of the Mall 5 set. We don't normally do this in the second hour, but damn it, I'm a self-absorbed bastard. It's the festival that I've put on here, and we wanted to promote it. Hopefully, people will come. We think they will. I think it's going to be a great night of music, no matter what. Unbelievable. Again, at the E-Bar. I think we've talked about it enough. You've heard the ads. So that's it. That's all you're going to hear about it for the rest of the show. Speaking of which, the show is winding down, and we want to thank our guests, Richard Laviolette, for joining us. He was just regaling us with Tales from the Road. I was a little distracted. Sorry, Richard. I was concentrating on the show, but it sounded fun. I want to hear more about it during breakfast, and thanks again for joining us and singing on the show. Unbelievable. Also, Ned Bekovec joined us in the first hour for our sports update and his
top
3 picks of the year. And speaking of top picks of the year, that brings us to next week's show. Next week is our last show of the year. Michelle, are you excited about that?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Well, it's sad that it's the last of something.
Yeah, it is.
But, of course...
We'll be back.
We'll be back in January. But no, exciting because we get to play, or we're going to try and play kind of the best of music in 2006 that was released.
Yeah, and I think the best of our show. We'll figure out how much time we have.
Best of some of our show.
We do lots of interviews and things, and we might try to incorporate that into next week's show. So no guest, but then maybe lots of guests.
Yeah.
We could have like so many people on next week's show that it'll be like unmanageable. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It'll be fun. So yeah, thanks for listening again, and we're going to end the set with something from the new Norm Macdonald record, Ridiculous. This is the 12 Days of Christmas. We thought it was appropriate, and that's the show. We will see you next week. Thank you very much once again. We love you. I'm talking to you. You there, listening. We love you. Thanks for listening to CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, and for tuning in to the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph.
Okay, bye for now.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree.
Hi, honey. Yeah, I just got it. It's terrific. It looks like some kind of a bird in a tree. Oh, you don't say, a partridge, huh? Well, it's great. Well, of course it was a surprise, honey. I was expecting a hat. Well, you know, I have been dropping some broad hints about maybe getting a hat. Oh, no, this is much better. It's like two gifts in one. I mean, I get the partridge, and I get a tree. Well, okay, thanks a lot, honey, and Merry Christmas.
On the fourth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.
There you go. I included some Norm Macdonald there a little bit because I love Norm and I needed something to cheer me up a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation we did with Richard Laviolette. Here, we're going to do another one now. Richard returned to the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show one more time for another live interview. Given recent events, this is a little eerie to me. The guests on our April 6th, 2011 show, which was episode 284, the guests were Rick Froberg from Obits, who recently passed away suddenly, as I recently created a memorial episode for. Rick joined us on the phone in the first hour of the broadcast. And then, again, Richard Laviolette joined us in person in hour 2. So here for you now is that 2011 talk with Richard Laviolette.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. My name is Vish, and it's time once again for our weekly artist profile. Our guest this week is Guelph, Ontario's Richard Laviolette. Richard is one of the most compelling and prolific songwriters working in North America today, fronting both a punk band called the Hollow Hooves and a country band called the Oil Spills, who each released stunning albums in the last couple of years. Somewhere between the two, he operates as a solo artist, writing impassioned, outspoken songs about life and how we live it. He is both nice and fascinating. That's what I wrote down here. Richard performs at the E-Bar this Sunday, April 10th, for an early show, opening up for Baby Eagle and the Proud Mothers. And here to tell us more about that and his new EP is Richard Laviolette. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Vish. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning. Nice to have you on the show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on again.
It seems like it's been forever since you've been on the show.
Yeah. Do you guys remember when the last time?
Oh God, do you?
No, I don't.
I feel like it might be. I don't know. I could check real quick, but it's probably 2008 or 7 or something. I have no idea.
Yeah, I remember a number of years ago when I missed it completely. You guys had invited me on the show, and then I slept in, and then called you frantically later in the afternoon or something. And
what I remember is I don't remember you flaking out on us in terms of not.
Then there was the other one where it was my birthday or something like that. Was that
I
your
think
show?
that's I think I don't think you've ever missed the show. I think what happened was you forgot. You said you told us when you showed up that you'd forgotten, but because you'd been up late all night for I think it was your birthday.
Yeah.
Someone there, I think it was Jordan Howard,
reminded you
aren't you going to be on the Mish V show tomorrow? And you're like, oh yeah, I am. And I think that's what happened.
I think I was actually, we were screen printing. I think it was the same night, screen printing Griffin and the True Believers album covers.
Right, for
at
Bird Oak Records.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I had a few wobbly pops and
well, it's fine.
I came out.
Yeah, you were fine. You showed up, and I think you even maybe played music on the show, perhaps. Yeah. And I interrupted the song because I didn't think it was done, or I thought it was done.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, very good, and you were like, it's not done. I still have a verse or two left. And I was like, oh, sorry, there was a pregnant pause, I guess, or whatever. So the new record is called Soundtrack to the Life of a Car Nearly Driving into the Pacific EP. I guess that's the Pacific Ocean. There's not a Pacific EP, but that's what it's called. And it says here, this EP is a nod to the future of goddamned folk rock and a love note to the authors of music that is dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. What exactly does that mean?
Well, I think the goddamned folk rock part was just me declaring my love and ongoing commitment to folk rock, and I was kind of laughing about it because just as far as different discussions on like how to categorize different music, and so over the past few years I've kind of started leaning towards just using big genre names and like calling the rock band rock and roll and country music, and anyway, so I was like, yay, folk rock. And then there's two covers on this EP. There's 5 songs total, and then there's 2 covers by my friends Simone Schmidt of $100 and Kate Wilson Yang of Kate Wilson Yang, and so that's the 2 musicians who I love and whose music I covered on there.
Right, and so prior to embracing these genres, this rock and roll, this country music, now folk rock, were you resistant to that idea of falling into a category? I suppose most artists would be.
I don't know. I think I was trying to overthink things, and I think it was more, for me it was challenging because I didn't have, 4 years ago it was like the first time I ever went to a house show, that wasn't at my grandmother's house or something like.
Sure.
And so I didn't think I didn't have a lot of language, and still don't, to like draw on different well, he's kind of this and he's kind of this, and
right, when you're describing something and
then I was getting criticized also from different people who would interview me, being like, come on, like give us like a nugget that we can.
They want a soundbite.
Yeah, which I mean is in the context of. Anyway, I'll stop.
No. I think it's a valid point you're making, and part of my job in life these days is to try to, I guess, qualify something and say, because and I often struggle with it too as someone who's paid to do that.
Yeah.
People are like, "What do they like?" And I'm like, it's kind of and I ramble. I'm like, because if something is distinct and unique, it should be impossible to categorize. But when you're down to guitar-based music, I mean, a lot of it has been done before.
Yeah.
And you think we would have a vocabulary at this point to be like, well, it sounds like this.
Yeah.
But that can be the hardest thing in the world. Like, do you write your own bios?
Sometimes I do. Yeah.
And do you find that to be tricky?
Oh, extremly difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
And I think I also get really self-conscious or I blush, I don't know, just considering, associating myself with certain musicians, being like, oh, well, he sounds like this person who maybe I have, maybe I'm a huge admirer of their music, but I'm like, oh, I'm not on that, I'm not that good.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I think for whatever reason we are a comparative people. Mm-hmm. We want to relate things to each other by the things that we think we know.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the familiar is easier to understand. So if you can relate it to something that's familiar, then
but I can also
be more open to it.
I can also see people being resistant if you're an artist who's emerging if someone's like, oh, he's like Neil Young, oh, he's like Bonnie Prince Billy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that must be kind of like, no, whoa, hey, I'm just doing a thing, and those guys have been doing this a long time. Yeah. I'm just trying to do something, so I can see you being resistant that way.
Yeah,
but I think it's also a result of probably being kind of modest as well. Yeah,
trying to.
So so the title of the EP is quite evocative. Soundtrack to the life of a car nearly driving into the Pacific.
Mm-hmm. Is this autobiographical experience that you're describing?
No, there was this crazy time when.
I'm curious about it.
The title actually was, I was trying desperately to have this EP done before going on my Western tour with Jenny Omnichord in the fall.
Yes.
And so that's where the title actually came from. Was just like driving out to the Pacific.
But this is nearly driving into the Pacific. Was there some kind of ordeal? Did you almost get into was there a bridge that was out or something? What happened?
Well, I mean, we did, get out to Vancouver Island and out to the very most western point of Vancouver Island. And there was a few very close calls where Jenny's son Otis was like leaning out the window, trying to like catch a butterfly, and almost like, driving along a cliff, and his weight was almost enough to like throw the car over the cliff. But then I pulled out the DVD player, a portable DVD player that we picked up in Alberta, and I threw on the Pee Wee Herman show that he loved, and just kind of like caught his attention just with enough time to get him back in and kind of stabilize the vehicle.
Sounds like that kid might need to go on a diet if he's tilting the car that much.
Yeah, he's big for his age for sure.
Was that stressful touring with a child? Like he was a toddler, right?
It was a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Sometimes it was. Went both ways. Sometimes it was a lot of work, and sometimes it was like really beautiful and really amazing.
Yeah. Is it something you would do again?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just clarifying. All right. Let's hear a song from this EP. It's called Bats. Can you tell us anything about a song called Bats? You chose this for us before we started.
Yeah. This is a song I wrote kind of like post. I had this surgery last year where I got my hip replaced.
Oh man!
And so kind of post that, and I don't know. It was kind of struggling through that, and also it was around this time after the G20 weekend, and a number of people I knew were getting arrested or had friends who were getting arrested and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of written in that context, I guess.
How's your hip these days?
Great, actually. Yeah. That was just over a year ago, and I feel like I'm a pretty mobile person. Yeah,
good.
That's good. Yeah, you're still tending to it. It's still a bit of a process, right, to get back to. Or are you?
I would say I'm there. Like I would say, things are as good as they're going to get.
Yeah,
and it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's as good as I could have hoped as far as the hip replacement goes.
Yeah, you don't seem to be limping as much as you.
Once
were.
Yeah, and so the lifespan should last about 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of the hip.
Yeah, the hip.
And then what happens?
Then I would get it. Another one.
What's it made out of?
Metal and plastic. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Good old metal and plastic.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's hear a song from this new EP, Soundtrack to the Life of a Car, Nearly Driving into the Pacific by Richard Laviolette. More with Richard after we hear this brand new song, Bats, on the Mish Vish Generational Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph.
Truck lurks slowly forward, you in the front seat driving. There's potholes to watch out for. washed out by the darkness. I drove off for the horizon as the moon rose up behind us. The bugs were thick and heavy. They smell the sweet sweat on me. Well, I find I lose my patience, but it's that fight that draws them to me. Is it for the blood and the glory, or for their sense of achievement? Do they do this for their family, or are they working for the government? Brush my forehead, the leaves they comb my hair. I swept my hat up off my head, out of reach and beyond repair. The anxious arms of the dead would reach out, trying dear to hold me. A million bouts around us, dancing of the serpents, nocturnal and brilliant. Well, I wish that I was one of them. Well, I wish that I was one of them. Is it for the blood and the glory, or for their sense of achievement? Do they do this for their family, or are they working for the government?
There's a little bit of talking there at the end.
Yeah. It was. I was recorded at Jessie Bell Smith's house, apartment,
right?
And she was at work. She didn't know I was recording in her house. No,
okay.
Broke into the house.
I had to sneak in there.
That's kind of weird.
So she was at work, and it was towards the end of I was recording the vocal track, I guess, and the answering machine came off, and it was like her baby cousin or something.
Oh, it was calling during. Oh, that's amazing.
Cute.
The song we just heard was "Bats." It is by Richard Laviolette from his new EP, "Soundtrack to the Life of a Car Nearly Driving into the Pacific Ocean." And Richard Laviolette is performing at the E-Bar this Sunday, April 10th, opening a show for his friend and label mate, Baby Eagle, Baby Eagle's band, Baby Eagle and the Proud Mothers. It's an all-ages show, begins at 8 p.m. And on the program today, Richard Laviolette. Richard, nice to have you on the program.
It's wonderful to be here.
Again. Now, we were just talking earlier about the last time you might have been on the show and how you'd forgotten that you were supposed to be on the show, and that and I was like, I think it was Jordan Howard who reminded you. And then Jordan is listening online. And hi, Jordan. We should all say hi to Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
Hello, Jordan.
And he verifies that yes to the comment about reminding Richard. So he is taking credit for your first appearance on the show as kind of your manager.
So did he stop by where I was hanging out then?
He was, I bet he could, if he's still listening.
Can you confirm that, Jordan?
Jordan, if you were listening, I feel like you were out partying. I don't actually think you were working on something. But you said you were drinking.
It was a combination.
Yeah. So he's typing some. Yes, he wrote yes. I don't know what that is. What is that? What is that? What does yes mean? What is that even an it? That's not.
Did you stop by at 32 Edinburgh?
He's writing here on GChat yes that he was involved in some way. So that's nice. So this is good. G-Chat is interesting. It's kind of fun that you can incorporate it into a radio show. I don't think pros would do that. No. But that's why we have the right. We can do whatever we want.
It makes it more interactive. Sometimes you have no idea who is listening or who your audience is.
Exactly. Sometimes I wonder if anyone's listening.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about the fact that you've been very prolific lately. I mentioned in the intro that you had 2 bands going with distinctive sounds, and we talked about that a little bit too. But they were separate projects. One, as you say, rock and roll band, the Hollow Hooves. The other is a country band called the Oil Spills. Now, these are, I think, related sounds. These aren't sounds that are that disparate. But the idea that you felt compelled, like, I got to separate these things. It's different people. How's that going for you? How does that work for you as a writer? And now you've got this solo EP, because you got to think about writing songs on your own too.
Yeah.
So how is this all working for you these days? Is it a weird? Is there a lot going on in your mind? Where you're like, I don't know what this song is for, who this is for, what sound is best for this?
Yeah. I think like prior to the Hollow Hooves and the Oil Spills albums, I released like the Little Less Like a Rock, A Little More Like Home, and then the Mary Carl album prior to that. And I think in my head on those albums, it was a bit more like kind of genre hopping or exploring.
Within the same record, you were
hopscotching, and I was just like, oh, I like bluegrass or kind of rock or folk or and so I think. I think after those, I was like really excited to kind of get involved in a band. And then I initially kind of started off with like, I was like, I started probably playing with Jonathan Cass, like the Hollow Hooves drummer, probably like 2 years or something before the recording came out. And it was just the two of us for a long time. And then we finally got some other members. But yeah, it was probably just like music I was inspired by at the time. And listening to a ridiculous amount of like Neil Young and Crazy Horse and Radiohead and Julie Duran and stuff like that.
And I thought in some cases maybe Minor Threat. Like there was a little bit of a punk aspect to it as well.
Yeah. And and then it's probably around the same time that I like dropped out of university and started hanging out with all like, these wild anarchist house show types.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah, they're still kicking around.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you were into punk as well.
I think like listening to more kind of like punk music and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think on that album in particular, I was afraid of because I had kind of previously released these kind of folk albums, a lot more acoustic based. I was like, I was afraid that my guitar wasn't loud enough on the Hollow Hooves record. So I was like, I need to, I want people to be able to rock out to this.
Right.
But then the country album was a bit of a surprise. I think like a year before that, I had probably sworn to myself that I was never going to write a country song. And my cousin...
Wait a second. Why is that?
Well, because it was the music I grew up with. Like my folks played it all the time. But I never... I don't know. Maybe I hadn't like got to that point in my life where I'd experienced enough sorrow or like kind of sorrow where like the remedy or recipe is like kind of you need to kind of work through that and process that sorrow, but you don't necessarily need like you don't necessarily need to feel like you're gonna like you want to hurt yourself or something. You kind of need something that's a bit more uplifting, and a bit more of an uplifting context to still be able to work through that.
Country music has this weird... I was talking to Dan Romano about this recently. Your label mate, Daniel Romano, has just released this beautiful country record called Sleep Beneath the Willow, and it is really much... For him, it's an ode to sort of classic 70s orchestral country music that you would hear on AM radio. And he was talking to us about we were just having a chat, and he was talking about how country music to him is interesting because it contains this weird mix where the music is very buoyant and joyous, but the lyrics are sad or sarcastic and
horrible
and depressing. Kind of like it's a weird marriage where like the music, it is kind of uplifting and you can tap your foot to it, but if you actually spend time with the lyrics, you'd be in hell. You'd just be in complete despair. And I suppose that must be some element of that has resonated with you as well.
Yeah, and the other thing that I love about like country music and kind of using that as a vehicle to deliver like lyrical content is just it kind of opens me up to a much bigger audience. I think it's a much more accessible kind of music, but still being able to, you know, write about being atheist and writing about you know, kind of anti-colonial content.
It's true. I think you've gone from you are adopting these forms that are a little more accessible, and I think that's an interesting move for you because you've been writing really challenging music, I think, for a long time, and been doing so on kind of, I suppose, I don't want to say a found sound, but there was a makeshift aspect to it, and your records were kind of like you wouldn't know where a record was going. Right? And now by kind of distinguishing them, you're saying, hey, come along for this ride. It's going to be kind of the same. Yeah. It will be scenic. There'll be a scenic route to it. But we're going to go in this direction. And you're still able to convey these great ideas that you have. And I think it's a genius move. I think it's a smart move for you.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's what I want to say to you. So what happens next for you, Richard? You've got the show coming up on Sunday. Are the hollow hooves a going concern? Because you've been spending so much time with the oil spills. I'm just wondering, what does the future look like?
Well, this Sunday, I'm just playing by myself. It's a solo set. Well, actually, that's not totally true. I'm playing with this person, my friend Martina Schaefer, who's playing keys on songs from the EP.
Okay.
And, but yeah, the future, I think my next project... I've kind of started putting together another rock and roll outfit. So kind of
another one
back to the rock.
Okay. What is this? Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, it's going to be so far. There's 5 people involved. I think for myself to kind of commit to the songwriting, I try and think of like who's going to be in the band and like what it's kind of going to sound like and stuff like that. So, I've been in contact with Jenny Mitchell, my friend Dave Hudson, Aaron Cricket, and my friend Maddie.
Okay.
So it's going to be rock and roll again, a bit more like kind of power chord based, somewhat more like, I don't know. I think I was inspired by some of like Shotgun Jimmy's, just like really like basic, just power chord, 3-4 chord songs.
Yep.
But then Maddie, who's going to be doing the drumming, has a bit more of like a kind of punk background as well. So I think just to like keep him happy and so he's not too bored with the indie rock, I think I'm going to throw in a few punk songs again. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on.
Okay, so that's what's coming up.
Yeah.
So again, you're moving, it sounds like, into more, I don't want to read too much into it, but now more of a pop rock thing.
Yeah, I'm going to try. It's like, it'll probably be, I have like, it's funny, I like made this mix CD of like kind of music that other rock bands that I like.
Yeah.
But then I will like kind of work on a song, and I always feel like my songs are slightly more depressing than I imagined them to be before. Oh dear. But yeah, trying to go for that more like kind of pop rock angle.
Excellent.
Pop punk, pop rock.
Look out for that then.
Yeah. Yep.
Again, our guest this week was Richard Laviolette. He's one of my favorite singers and songwriters anywhere in the world today, and he's from right here in Guelph, Ontario. And we love him to death on this show. And his new EP is called Soundtrack to the Life of a Car, Nearly Driving into the Pacific. Richard, where's the best place for people to track this thing down? Because you just gave this to me.
You can either email me at richard.laviolette at gmail.com or... come to the E-Bar.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
On Sunday evening.
And buy it.
You'll have some for sale.
Yes, I'll have some for sale.
Yeah, Richard Laviolette is performing this Sunday evening at an early show that begins at 8 p.m. It is at the E-Bar. It is an opening slot for Baby Eagle and the Proud Mothers. Tickets are only available at the door. It's $6 with a non-perishable food donation for the Guelph Food Bank, and $8 without. All proceeds benefit Out on the Shelf, which is Guelph's queer library and resource center, and you can learn more about them at outontheshelf.ca. And I think that's all I really have to say about that. It's a co-presentation between Keep Your Eyes Open and CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. And it's going to be fun to see you play again.
Yeah, I'm excited to play. I'm stoked for the Baby Eagle as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love the Baby Eagle myself. Let's go to another song from the new EP. What should we hear here, Richard?
Ooh, let's try Mountain Goats.
Now, Mountain Goats, this is interesting to me because just last week on this show, our guest was John Darnielle of the popular American band, the Mountain Goats.
Mountain Goats, yeah, that's what you're saying. That's really exciting.
So is this is a connect? Is there some connection? Or
it's titled after the fact that I was listening to. Well, it's the first line in the song actually.
Oh,
it's lately.
It's evident right there.
Spending more time with the Mountain Goats, but it's.
Well, it's funny because the Pacific, there's a Pacific Ocean motif on some level.
Yeah,
and when you drive out west, if you're lucky, if you're in the Rockies, you see some mountain goats.
Jenny and Otis and I, we drove into this parking lot and we're parked beside a mountain goat.
Yeah, every time I've gone, you end up stopping to let mountain goats, cross or whatever. Yeah. So that's what immediately I thought. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
No. That it's called, but it's actually sort of about the band.
It's like a kind of a post-breakup song, and it was the first Mountain Goat. I'd been meaning to get into the Mountain Goats, and then had coincidentally picked up this album called Get Lonely.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to that because the entire album is songs about breakups.
Okay, well, let's hear it now. This is Richard Laviolette with Mountain Goats on the Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph. Richard, thank you so much again for being on the show.
You are both very welcome.
Lately I've been spending more time with the mountain goats. On the drive to my parents, I took all the back roads home. I turned up the volume so I could hear the vocals. Over the hum of the wind tumbling in through the windows. Over the roar of the engine coming in off the open road. Tucked away in an attic of a place on Aberdeen, with some books and a mattress and me off sweeping, as my thoughts would collect in the cracks between floorboards. Taking stock of their plight, they wonder what a life like this is good for. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. Under the weight of my feet, I feel the floorboard speaking. And at night, while I read, I feel the street lights creeping. The only books that I brought were by children's authors, like the one in which Piglet is entirely surrounded by water. chest and then driving away. Both lungs pulled tight as I fight to keep breathing. Having the wind knocked out of me seems like a tired cliche. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone. I forgot what exactly it felt like to be alone.
Okay, those are some archive interviews I conducted with Richard on CFRU with my wife Michelle on our Mish Vish Interracial Morning Show. I hope you enjoyed those. The last time Richard and I did an interview was for this podcast. I believe it was episode 305, I want to say. And March 1st, 2017, episode 305, Richard was on to talk about his record, Taking the Long Way Home, which was out on You've Changed Records. And it's, as I recall, it was a good talk. I will share a link to that if you want to check that out as well. As I mentioned, I subsequently turned that interview into a news article as well, and I'll link to that. It was for the Guelph Mercury Tribune. Okay, here's a thing I'm going to try to do for you now. I know there's a new album coming out that Richard recorded with Scott Merritt, and it's got, I'm told, 14 songs on it. And as I mentioned earlier, I think 5 of them, maybe more, we took a go at putting together in 2018. I already mentioned it was a room recording. I'm going to share a song. I'm going to share a song from that time we spent in the House of Miracles. I don't think this is going to come out any other way, and it's not a great sounding recording in a sense, but it's sort of a field recording, and I think the band was good, and I want to share something with you here. So I think I will, and I hope people understand it's in the spirit of just sharing something intimate I got to make with Richard. It was really, I can't tell you what a thrill it was to be asked by him to do it. In fact, I stumbled upon an email from my Nathan Cole's Outfit band member, Chris Herlahai, who wrote to me in this time period when Richard had invited me. And he's like, I heard you got tapped by Richard. That's amazing. He was very excited for me to get to play with Richard. We all admired Richard very much. And I wrote back, I'm like, yeah, I'm over the moon. I feel, in retrospect, I was sort of semi-retired from playing with people. It felt like I was playing here and there, but it was great to be asked to do something creative. And and collaborative. And Richard asked me, and it, I've done a lot of cool things as a musician in my life, but I will say that those 4 days spent with Richard are some of the most meaningful I ever had. I wish the recording was better. All I have is this, and I want to share something with you. So, again, I don't know if an iteration of this is ever going to appear, or if it already exists, maybe on Richard's Bandcamp page. I'll link to that as well. But when he first sent us his demos, there was a song called Broken Moon. And then, like I say, he sent us notes after he received the demo recording, and he sent us what he envisioned as a potential track listing for what we'd worked on. And the song had a new name. I Swear I Won't Take This Lightly. Again, I don't know if among the new songs it's here, but I'm going to share our take on it, just because I like that song, and I had to pick one. So I'm picking that one. Thank you for listening to this. If you're hurting because of the loss of Richard, I hope hearing his voice and hearing someone talk about him helped in some way. I don't know. I hope if you're unfamiliar with him, your curiosity's piqued now, and you'll pursue his music. It's a cliche that these things outlast us and outlive us and all those sorts of things, but it is true, and we're lucky we have this. I made it through this. I thought I was going to have a breakdown, and I did it. I was singing a replacement song to my wife. It wasn't my wife. I was singing a replacement song to my daughter the other night for bedtime. I often sing her songs, and I don't know, Richard just came into my head. I was singing Swingin' Party on guitar there, and that Richard just was there, and I had to stop and compose myself and get through it. It was hard. So it's hitting all of us in waves. I'm still processing this, and I'm going to stop babbling. Thank you for listening to this. Please listen to Richard Laviolette, and to all who knew and loved him. I'm sorry. If you want to talk or chat, reach out, please. I need people to talk to about this, and I have already done a little bit of that. Okay. Thanks for listening. And enjoy this sort of lo-fi room mic recording of a band I got to play in with Richard and Matt Reeves, Jesse Bell Smith, and Andy McGoffin, and the wonderful Richard Laviolette. I love you, Richard. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.